In Genesis 1, verse 3, what did God say to create light? According to Genesis 2, verse 7, from what did God form man? In Genesis 2, verse 17, what was the consequence of eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? In Genesis 3, verse 6, what did Eve do after she ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil? According to Genesis 4, verse 15, what did the Lord put on Cain to protect him from being killed? In Genesis 4, verse 17, who built the first city mentioned in the Bible? According to Genesis 4, verse 25, who was born to Adam and Eve after the death of Abel? According to Genesis 5, verse 27, who was the oldest person recorded in the Bible? In Genesis 6:14, what specific type of wood did God instruct Noah to use for the ark? In Genesis 7:2, how many pairs of clean animals did God tell Noah to take into the ark? In Genesis 7:11, how old was Noah when the flood began? According to Genesis 9:13, what did God set in the clouds as a sign of his covenant with the earth? In Genesis 9, verses 20 to 21, what profession does Noah take up after the flood? In Genesis 11:4, what did the people try to build in the city of Babel? In Genesis 12, verse 1, from which country did God call Abram to leave? In Genesis 14, verse 18, who was the king of Salem and priest of God Most High that blessed Abram? According to Genesis 15:5, what did God promise to Abram regarding his descendants? In Genesis 21:14, whom did Abraham send away into the wilderness with some food and water? According to Genesis 22:13, what did Abraham find to sacrifice instead of Isaac? According to Genesis 24:67, whom did Isaac marry? In Genesis 25:34, what did Esau trade his birthright for? According to Genesis 27:28, what did Isaac bless Jacob with? According to Genesis 28:12, what did Jacob see in his dream at Bethel? According to Genesis 28:13-15, what did God promise Jacob in his dream at Bethel? In Genesis 29:16-18, who does Jacob fall in love with at first sight? In Genesis 29:25, whom did Laban give to Jacob as his wife instead of Rachel? In Genesis 30, verses 3-9, which two maidservants were given to Jacob by his wives Rachel and Leah to bear children on their behalf? According to Genesis 32:28, what name was given to Jacob after he wrestled with the angel of God? In Genesis 32, what is the name of the place where Jacob wrestled with God? In Genesis 34:1, what was the name of Jacob's only daughter? According to Genesis 41:25, what did Joseph say that Pharaoh's two dreams represented? In Genesis 41, verses 33-36, what does Joseph suggest to Pharaoh as a solution to prepare for the coming famine? According to Genesis 47:9, how old was Jacob when he appeared before Pharaoh? In Genesis 49:10, which tribe did Jacob prophesy would hold the scepter? According to Genesis 47:28, how old was Jacob when he died in Egypt? According to Genesis 50:24, what did Joseph remind his brothers about God's promise to the Israelites? According to Genesis 50:26, how old was Joseph when he died?